Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you might be. We are going to get started at our normal 4 after. So stick around for some witty banter while we wait, along with mic and video check. I need to fix my phone stand. I'm better at that. Let's see how that does. We'll let people jump in here, and while we're waiting, I'm going to schedule the next one. Good afternoon. Welcome. If somebody out there could do the obligatory mic and video check, let me know everything's okay, please. We're going to gather and get started at 4 after. Oh, I'm a little tired today. It's been a long day. Belazar, welcome, welcome. Glad you can make it. Keith, good. Sound and video all good. Thank you. Check done. Thank you, Belazar. Appreciate it. It is the 1 after. We'll wait for the 4 after and get rolling. While we're waiting and gathering, I am going to... Hey, Caitlin! While we are waiting and gathering, I'm going to set up the next event. Try to get in a better routine on getting these out there. Sue, got a hold of me. The link is not connecting. Okay, let me see if I can get that link for her. Try this one. Boom. Let's see. That was our made an alarm for you. Made an alarm. Oh, for today. Got it. Wonderful. All right, duplicate. Facebook Live, Mealworm and More. Okay, let's go see the schedule. Let's see, tomorrow I have a couple things going on, but that's what we're doing today. Let's space it out just a little. Tuesday is wide open. Tuesday is wide open. Let's see. This one's in the afternoon. What are we doing on, what was it, Thursday last? Was that in the afternoon or the morning? Co-op. That was on Friday in the morning. So maybe we should do Tuesday morning? Yeah, we'll see how things go. Fred, welcome. Steve, how's everybody doing? I'm doing okay. Hopefully everybody else is doing okay as well. I'm a little tired. Lots going on this week. Lots and lots going on. We're going to go ahead and get started in another minute. The page isn't working right now. Let me see if I can... Ooh, I wonder if I can invite... Hey, Karen! I am doing good. Hope you're doing good, too. Okay. If things pause for a moment, I'm just trying to do something. Let me see if I can find... No. Oh no. Oh, I can't find. Okay. Oh, here we go. Invite people. So I need to find Sue. See if I can grab her. All right, we are at 4 after. Let me send this to Sue. See if that helps her out at all. Every now and then, Facebook is just a bit wonky. All right, well, let's get rolling. So for those of you that may not have been to one of these before or watching for the first time on the recording, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. My name is Justin Meyer. I run Midwest Mealworms here in Ashland, Missouri. and we do a live session. The goal is weekly. I'm on a roll. I think we're at 3 weeks in a row now. I was just looking at dates for next week, or times for next week, to get one scheduled. I'm thinking sometime Tuesday looks wide open for me. So we'll get that going, get the invite out. One of the things that I'm going to test out soon, I was lucky enough to get a new camera. And my goal with this is to do a bit more streaming with this while we're working. Get some more recordings of that, because it's a little clunky to hold the phone and go around and do the things that need to be done or get the right angle. So I'm going to try out, this thing wraps around your head. It's like reverse glasses. We'll see how that goes. And then potentially live streaming that with StreamYard. Had a good experience with that with Wally over at Supreme Gecko. Which could bring in more folks like from the YouTube channel and from other places. So going to be testing that out, try to get the camera set up sometime this week if I can, and then get things rolling to try to do that for sessions like this. So you would still be able to join from Facebook, from YouTube, whatever platform it is that you're using, and then it just displays for me in a centralized location, and I get to do some fancy things. Wally probably knows a lot more about that than I do, but all right, if you guys have any questions, any concerns, any problems you're having with your mealworms, any successes you're having, we'd like to talk about those too, so we can all learn some new tips and tricks, new things that we can test out. You might have a solution for somebody who has a problem and is going to watch this later. So don't be bashful about floating your own boat. We love that here. So go ahead and start throwing those out there. And if I seemingly ignore your comment or your question, please tag me or send me a direct message. Every now and then I can't see the comments on the screen. Even with the new phone, I did have that problem last week as well. I went through and saw some that I had completely missed because they just weren't displayed to me. So I'm not ignoring you. Facebook just hasn't shown me the comment or the question. So all right. If there's anything you want to see, Ben is, unfortunately, Ben is in the insect room. He's harvesting right now, getting things squared away, and the dust count is up. One update I can give you on the, let me grab the box real quick. One update on this guy, the Inkbird air quality detector. So long story short, I had ordered one of these a month and a half, 2 months ago, got it, powered it up, worked. It started collecting all the data that I was looking for. They have a decent app, it connected to Wi-Fi, everything was great, and then the unit just started powering down randomly. It seemed to happen overnight. I don't know if it was related to the time of day or something. Everything else in the room was fine. I don't know if it was power glitching or if there was a problem, but I reached out to their support folks, didn't get timely answers, and so I returned it. They reached out to me via Amazon, which is where I bought it through, and asked me what was going on, why had I returned it. They wanted to try to make the product better, and so I gave them that feedback, and then they sent me one to test out. Transparency, it was free, so I tested it out. Same thing started happening, so they suggested a different outlet, different room, so I did that, and it's been working. And so I put it back into the insect room on a separate separate circuit from the one it was plugged into, separate circuit breaker. And so far I did that today, so we'll see how things roll. But it's gathering the data that I'm hoping to, so that I can see, when it needs to be ventilated. I'm not sure yet what a good particle level is other than low. And I can definitely see, like, when we're in there working today, it gets pretty high, which is why we're wearing the masks and whatnot. So I'm curious to see if it does do well on the other circuit. And if it does, I'll probably buy another one to support the Inkbird folks, because they've been going back and forth with me in email messages via Amazon. So pretty good stuff. Actually exciting to see. Oh, just got your package. Awesome. Wonderful, wonderful. If there's anything going on with those that you're not happy about, please let me know. I shipped out some insects on Monday. Glad they showed up. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. All right. But anyway, I was saying Ben's in the insect room right now, so we could go in there, but we'll give him some time. I can throw the mask on if we really need to. But the front part of the room is open if there's anything you want to see there. One downside, I am making, well, sort of downside for you guys because I can't show you. I am making progress on the sifter. So I purchased a horizontal vibration table. I found it on eBay, bought it. So far, everything's working okay. Once I know it's functioning and actually works for what I need and give it a little bit of time to be used, I'm definitely going to share all the info about it, what the model number is, etc. Because basically, I mean, it looks like you could get one of these at any point. So the one downside is that the sieves that we need for mealworms don't come with the device. So there are two different sieves. This one separates out 3 different outputs, and to do that, it has 2 sieves, and those used holes. And they were pretty big. So unfortunately, I can't use those for mealworms. So I met with a metal worker yesterday. Another long story that's trying to get to where I started here. I met with a metal worker yesterday on the other side of Ashland. He had made a sifting tray for me to test out several months ago. So I went back to him to have some new sieves made there. So that I can separate out. I need a mesh one, so I'm going to use the 1/30th mesh to separate the frass out, and then I need the harvesting one. That's the one we're going to go with first to test out harvesting, and then maybe also multi-purpose use that for collecting pupa too. We'll see. But he's getting all the material priced out, figure out what the plan is there. So the sifter is not in the building. It's in the back of my truck. I haven't taken it out after I met with him yesterday. So I don't have that here to show you guys. But if you want to see it, it is in the other last week's session that's posted. So Shannon, I wondered if I could put pupa in the fridge too and pull them out as needed to become beetles. Thanks. I've done that myself in the past. I didn't have success with it. But I didn't. What I did was I put them in a tray. I added just a little bit of bran, I think. I added bran, and then on some of them I didn't. And I put them in the fridge, same temperature as the mealworm, same fridge physically as the mealworm. So I had mealworms in there, and then I had pupa as well in a separate tray. And what I found is that they died. And my guess is that they were drying out because when things are in the fridge, the moisture comes out of it, right? Unless you have a lid over it. So it might be better for pupa if you cover them somehow, right? I don't know if you could, like, maybe a bait cup with the lid on it. I don't know if that would be a good test to see how that goes. But I just had too much die off when I tried that. So instead of doing that, Shannon, what I would recommend is get ahead of that problem by taking those mealworms that are going to pupate and getting them into the fridge to slow them down. Because the mealworms do just fine in the fridge, right? Routine maintenance on them once a week, pull them out, give them moisture, put them moisture and feed, let them eat for 3-4 hours, take out whatever's left, throw them back in. They do much better than the pupa, and then that slows them down as well. So that stops you from having that problem with too many pupa. Caitlin, I'm finally needing to get new drawers. Yeah! Awesome. Which ones are you looking at? Or did you already make a decision? Do you already know what you're getting? That sort of thing. That's a good problem to have, right? So colony's expanding. Things are going well. That's awesome. Very, very good to hear. Last week, another quick update on my end. As you guys are coming up with questions or anything you want to see or throw out there, please do that and we'll tackle them as we go. Another update on shipping. So last week I posted a video and somebody commented. I posted a video of me packaging up an order for Root Troop, and then I shipped that off, and somebody commented on there that those regional boxes, so I use regional box A1, I don't have one in here, regional box A1 and regional box B1. Those are my 2 big boxes, big from a volume perspective. I use a lot of those to ship out. They said on that video, they said, hey, do you know that those boxes are going away at the end of the year? And I did not. So I did some quick Googling, and that looks like it is true. Hadn't heard that from my post office. I deliver there every Monday, so that was a little disconcerting, but it does appear to be true. So last week I went through an exercise of lots of math, lots of research to try to find boxes and sizes and things that would work well. So I think I've narrowed it down, and I've ordered a couple things. I did order a 5x5x5 box because that will fit up to 2,000 mealworms. We'll see how that goes. I'm a little worried that might be a bit too small in the spring, summer when it gets warmer, but I'll be testing that out. And then I've got a 10x10x6 for the box B1 replacement, and then a 7x7x7, which is a kind of the medium, sort of the A1 replacement, I guess would be a good way to look at it. And the reason I'm breaking out, so right now I use A1s for everything from 500 count to 5,000 count, sometimes up to 6,000 or 7,000 count, depending on the weather. And the reason that I broke that out into two separate boxes, the 5s and the 7s, is because I can fit, it's just a weight thing. So I can fit those smaller quantities up to 2,000 in that smaller box, and then it's going to be cheaper shipping for the end user, for that person that bought them. And while I'm doing this, all this research on the boxes, I'm taking that opportunity to change to try to change the way that shipping is done on my website, so that it calculates it dynamically and you're paying the exact shipping. Because right now it's kind of fuzzy math. I have regions set up, and what I don't like, I have shipping regions. So like folks that are out on the coasts have an added shipping fee because it costs more to ship from Missouri to there. What I don't like about that is that in the process of using the website, you add it to your cart, it looks like there's no shipping there, and then you move into checkout and it says shipping fee. I personally don't like that. I like to know that ahead of time. And so I'm just going to change things up and see how that goes, where it's just the price of the mealworms plus whatever it costs to ship it. So we'll see how that goes. Steve, I just got started about 3 weeks ago. Congrats. Welcome. Welcome to the Mealworm Farmers. I got 250 beetles and 1,000 mealworms, hundreds of pupa now, and super excited to grow my little operation. That's awesome. So you're well on your way then. The pupa, depending on how quickly they start hatching, right? You want to have some trays ready. So hopefully you've got, either a one of those towers with the drawers in it, or some extra containers, whatever they are, so that you can put your pupa in there. You could also use a pupa bridge. I don't know if we've talked about those recently, but those come in handy, especially in a scenario where you may not have a whole ton of room for your colony. Instead of having a separate drawer or separate tray for your pupa to hatch out in, you can build a pupa bridge, which essentially just elevates them above the beetles and doesn't allow the beetles to climb up. So something that's plastic, like a fruit container from, go to the grocery store and buy fruit. It comes in those pop clamshell things. Flip one of those over, cut some holes in the bottom so the beetles can get into the bran or substrate underneath. And then put your pupa on top. When they hatch out, the pupa or the beetles at that point will move around a little bit and then eventually fall off the side, do a little tumble and join their friends down below. So that might save you some space, Steve. There are some options too. Scott over at Space Coast Mealworms, he laser cuts some pupa bridges of various sizes, so you could use that as well. He made them out of wood at first, the same material that his pupa sifters are made out of, but the beetles would climb up, so you have to tape those. But then he started using acrylic for that. And so as long as it stays clean, just like any vertical surface, like your drawers and stuff, you need to do some routine maintenance there every now and then to make sure they don't get too dusty or dirty with anything. But his acrylic pupa bridges don't have to be taped because they're slick. They can't climb up that. Mike from Oklahoma is finally here. Welcome, Mike. Glad to see you. All right. I'm trying to think if there's any other updates. If you guys have any questions for me or anything you want to see, toss them out there for me. I am hopefully this afternoon going to successfully wire transfer some money to Tricycle up in Canada to get some more trays. And I need to get a post out there to the group because everything has gone fantastic with Tricycle. So somebody within the co-op group turned me onto them, pointed me in their direction. I met with Alexis up there and ordered trays. The trays came in, we're using them, everything's great. I'm ordering more. So I need to make a video on that and get it posted. Alexis is in our group though, so if you want to search for him or find him, I've been working with him directly for a while now, and everything's awesome. So those blue trays that we use now that come from Beacon Camp, he is a licensed reseller of them, and so get you some blue trays if you want. There were no issues from a shipping perspective, like no custom stuff, nothing I had to do as the buyer. They took care of that, and the transport company that brought them down here, nothing got hung up, and there wasn't anything special that I had to do there, which was surprising to me, but yeah, it worked out well. Steve's currently have a 3-tier system, but quickly realized I'm going to need more. Definitely going to do the bridges till the 12-drawer cart gets here. Thank you for all the great info. You're welcome. My pleasure. Yes, you're well on your way. And what you'll find is you're going to get that 12-drawer system, and you're going to fill it, and then you're going to have to get another one, and then another one, and go bigger. And just saying, it happens. It gets pretty addictive. Joel, what do the trays look like? Let's go take a little walk. I'm going to turn you guys around once I open the door here. I don't want you to just stare at a door. All right, so these are the Beacon Camp trays. And they actually do have Beacon Camp on them, so I can spell them correctly. B-E-E-K-E-N-K-A-M-P. These are developed and manufactured over in the Netherlands. Got some more over here. But these are specifically made for raising mealworms. And so when I originally tried to get more of these, the original stock that I had of these trays, I bought 1,100 of them from a company in Texas that raised them, or that ran a mealworm farm, and then they wanted to switch businesses and go in a different direction. They wanted the experience of raising them to better understand it, and they were done with that research, and so they sold all of their equipment, and so I purchased those trays at that time. And then I went year and a half or 2 years trying to, so Beacon Camp does sell to folks in the US, but you've got to order a boatload of them, right? So a shipping container full plus shipping is tens of thousands of dollars. Buying them piecemeal is still just as expensive, even though it's, if you want one pallet, you're still paying for overseas shipping to get here. So then we found Tricycle, thanks to the folks here in this group, and they are in Canada, and ships right to us. So I don't think they have a limit on, like, you have to order a certain amount. So if you're curious about these trays or want to use them, Alexis is the person to reach out to. Tristan, welcome. And let me go get Alexis's last name, because I can never remember what his last name is. I've got it right here because we're trying to work through the latest purchase. I'm going to get another 255 trays. Alexis Fortin, F-O-R-T-I-N. And he works at tricycle.eco. So tricycle, just like the normal spelling of little three-wheeled thing that you rode when you were a kid. .eco, E-C-O. Great communication from Alexis. I've had no issues whatsoever. So, all good. Okay. I do have a question for the group. Has anyone heard? Oh, hold on. No, sorry, I was getting a message. Tristan, how long from beetle removal to pupation of their offspring? Beetle removal. So I want to make sure I'm understanding, Tristan, the question. So you're saying you have your beetles in your tray laying, and then you remove those beetles, and how long before those eggs/babies will then be pupating? If I don't have that right, let me know. but I'm going to say anywhere between 2 to 3 months. If you're at 2 months, you're doing really, really, really good. You can get lower than that. There are folks who have claimed they get lower than that. But ultimately, it depends on a couple of things. One, your environment conditions, right? So if you're colder, it's going to take them longer. If they don't get moisture, they don't have feed, it's going to take them longer. And then, what was the other thing? Oh, there is some remove beetles from tray. Yes, they're egg. Yep. So there is some info out there on population density. And if I remember correctly, I know Scott would know this because we had both read there was a research paper by Juan Ramos Morales. I think I've talked about him before. I think it was his study, and let me go see if I can find it. I feel like I just talked to somebody about this in a consulting session. Maybe that was fecundity. But he did a study on population density, and when they're younger, it was on larvae. It wasn't on the beetles, it was on the larvae. And so when they're babies, if there are more of them, they do better, they'll grow faster if they're higher density. And then as they get older, there's a point where you need to flip that and give them more space as opposed to having them so densely populated. I haven't tried to do that personally. Right now that would be a lot of potential work. But I wonder if we're doing it organically because what we do today, Tristan, is once we start seeing larvae that are big enough to harvest, we're going to go in there and we're going to harvest that tray. And sometimes we'll get younger larvae in there that just aren't big enough yet. And then we take those younger larvae and we put them in a tray. You know, we'll reintroduce them to a tray so that they can continue to grow. And so we're kind of adjusting the density at that point. But I would do a quick search on Juan Ramos Morales. His last two names are hyphenated, Ramos Morales, and population density. That'll probably get you to the research study that he did on that. Per square inch, the more beetles, same amount of eggs, I believe. I'm trying to remember. There was a study on that as well. I think by Juan, where you're absolutely right. If you folks think if you increase the number of beetles in a tray, you're going to increase the number of larvae you're going to get, and that was not true. So that did not help increase production volume or egg laying, etc. And so that was definitely a not good thing. They found negative effects of putting too many in one tray. What I remember from that is that I did for a while do what they studied this in a lab scenario, lab colony. And what I did do is they had the optimal density, and I did not get production equivalent to what they did with that population density. I could have done that wrong, right? I mean, I had to do some math and figure all that out for my tray size compared to what they were doing, but I didn't get the larva population, larva quantity that they did. So I don't know why, right? That was, at that point, I'd been running the farm for a while. I don't think it was because I was new to it. It could have been a math problem, like people make mistakes, but I found a good volume of beetles is 1,500 in a 24 by 16 inch tray, which is what I use now. Very similar dimensions to the white dough proofing trays I used before. That's when I started using 1,500 per tray. I tested 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000, and that 1,500 seemed to be a good middle ground because it was in the middle. But that was the one that resulted in really good production. So, all right, lots of comments. Let me catch up. Per square inch more beetle. Joel, I read when smaller, it's more dense, then they eat more food and grow quicker. That could be very possible. Yep. Gerard, good evening. Which high protein feed and substrate do you recommend? So right now I am using, from a feed perspective, hey, Max is in the house. That information is correct. Overcrowding while they are young helps them maintain the heat real fast, yet once they are maturing, the growth rate slows considerably while overcrowding. Then Velazar with the 0.94 beetles per centimeter squared. I I'm not gonna be able to do the math on the session here. My brain's gonna melt trying to do that. The per centimeter squared, 0.94 beetles per centimeter squared. So is that length and width, right? That's not taking into depth. See, I'm thinking too hard. Gerard, let me go tackle that. Velazar, give me more context, or give me more info there. Good evening, Justin. Which high protein feed and substrate do you recommend? Good evening, sir. From a feed perspective, a lot of it's going to depend on your context, honestly. Like, so your specific question here is which high protein feed and substrate. So high protein, unmedicated or non-medicated chick feed is popular here in the U.S. And so, if you've got chickens and you're already getting that in order to feed the chickens, that works. What I found with the non-medicated chick feed is that the crumbles, especially the crumbles, they're very dense. And it seems like they're harder for the mealworms to eat. I don't use it yet, or not yet. I don't use it consistently. I have started using it for the superworms, so I have it here, but I haven't started trying to integrate it in with the mealworms because it causes a sifting slowdown. So right now, when we have mealworms that we harvest, and they're just going to be around for a little while and then start to pupate, I don't want to introduce the high protein chick feed because it's going to clog up the sifters. So I use wheat bran. I used that up until last week. It's the flaky stuff that is the leftover after the wheat is processed. I was getting that. I've been using that for years. The problem I had recently, the supplier didn't deliver during Thanksgiving weekend a couple weeks ago. And so I got in a pinch point because it had been delayed and then it got canceled. So I had to find an alternative source of substrate for a little bit. And luckily I fell into wheat mids. Wheat mids are 14% protein. And what I like about the wheat mids is that instead of just the outside flaky stuff, it's all of it after they take out the endosperm, I think, if I'm thinking correctly. And so there's a lot of particles in there. It's not fine particles. It's not like a flour consistency. It's got a lot of different sizes in it, but I like the smaller pieces being in there because that's better for the young larvae. They've got small mandibles. It's easy for them to eat smaller things. And so I just found a supplier here that has it, or a local feed store that has it. And I talked to my feed store up in Columbia, where I've been buying wheat bran for the last 5 years, and to see if they could reach out to that supplier and maybe get that wheat mid. But I like the mids because of the processing ease that it has. So if we put it in with beetles, when we're doing our beetle swap now, we're sifting the substrate out and then putting the beetles into a new tray with new bedding and putting that or new substrate and taking that substrate and putting it into the bin. And so the wheat bran goes through the mesh without letting the beetles through. The mids are going to go faster because it's smaller particles. So I'm excited about that. That's the other reason why chick feed, the stuff I've seen, unless you can get it ground, then it's probably not something I would say use all the time. From other sources, like I've tried here in the U.S., I've tried distiller's grain. It was very high in protein. They wanted nothing to do with it. I put nothing but this distiller's grain into a bin with mealworms. They didn't touch it for 2 weeks. I put moisture in there. They would eat the moisture, wouldn't touch that distiller's grain. So that it might have been just too high protein. I was talking with somebody down at MFA, which is a local feed store, and he said that, I can't remember how we started talking about this, but he was talking about how he had been feeding cows something, and then they gave them a higher protein feed, and what they found is the cows went for the lower protein feed. So it might just be nature doing its thing of higher protein may not necessarily be a fantastic thing. I don't think that I don't know the scientific reason for that yet. I bet Velazar is already feverishly typing something about that. But it just didn't, the high protein stuff just didn't seem to do very well. All right, Keith, this may be a ResearchGate profile. Juan Morales Ramos. Yes, Juan Morales Ramos. It's not Ramos Morales? Have I been getting that wrong? Oh, I feel so bad if I am. Oh no! I'm going to have to apologize to him. Juan Morales Ramos. Dang it! Thank you, Keith. Yes, that is him. He is a researcher out of, where is he currently at now? USDA out in California. And he is still active. I've emailed him. So if you guys get stuck or you have questions about, or you can't get, depending on which research paper you're looking for, little known fact here in the US, if the research paper is behind a paywall, you don't have to pay the paywall. You could reach out to the researcher that published it and they'll send it to you. It's their paper. They can distribute it however they want. So I think I got one of them from him, but he's also just there to email. Thank you for checking that, Keith. I've been saying it wrong this whole time. Dang it. James, what's this called again? What was that for, James? Was that for wheat mids? MIDDS? That might have been it. Tristan, see me. I don't know what that is. Oh, see me. See me's here. Got it. All right. Velazar, make private group, and I will comment the protein in the feed. I don't know what that means, Velazar. Make profit group. It'll come to my brain at some point. Mahmood, so what not to feed my mealworms or stay away from? So I would stay away. What are you going to use your mealworms for? So if you're going to raise your mealworms to be fed to reptiles, stay away from citrus, right? Because whatever you don't want to feed to that reptile, you don't want to feed it to your mealworms. Mealworms will keep whatever it is that they've eaten in their gut, in their body, for up to 72 hours. And I'm basing that on a research study that Stanford did on feeding my chickens. Okay. I did that. The 72 hours thing came from a research study on styrofoam and mealworms. And what they found is they analyzed the mealworms at 24, 48, and 72 hours. At 24 hours, there were still trace components of the styrofoam. 48 hours, there were less. And 72 hours, there were none. So they got it flushed out of their system, essentially, or processed it. What they found is that there were still trace components of that styrofoam left in the frass. So that needs to be studied some more to see what that means. But that tells me that if you like feeding your chickens, whatever you wouldn't feed to your chickens, don't feed to your mealworms. I'm trying to think of what you wouldn't feed to chickens that isn't, like a standard thing, right? Like don't feed, pesticides to them, right? Like the normal things that you wouldn't feed to them. But like with reptiles, it's citrusy thing. But from not to feed your mealworms, stay away from wheat bran for chickens. Really? That surprises me. Because those chickens will eat anything. They'll eat the beetles as well. So one of the things we do with our beetles here, whenever they're spent, after a beetle's going to lay 95% or more of its eggs within the first 2 months that it starts laying, they'll hatch and they'll turn various colors. They'll go white, reddish, dark red, brown, then black, and they'll start laying eggs when they turn black, usually within a week. And then they will lay those eggs for 2 months. They'll live longer than that. So we cull them here because they're not producing effectively enough to stay in rotation. And then we will feed them to chickens. So we do that with our spent beetles. So since you're using mealworms for chickens anyway, Mahmoud, if you get to the point where you're keeping track of your beetles of each tray and you know what their age is, once they hit 2 months, go ahead and sift them one more time, pull the beetles out, put the larva back in, or the substrate back into that tray to let the eggs hatch, and then take those beetles and feed them to your chickens. Gerard, do you recommend silica water gel for water? Thanks in advance. I do use water gel crystals. Let me go see what they're... Water gel crystals. I always get the name wrong. It's taking a while to load. You want to make sure, Gerard, you want to make sure that you get water gel crystals intended for insects. So there are a lot of products here in the US that are used for plants, agriculture type scenarios. Some of them have dyes or coloring in them because they're used for decoration or things like that. I don't recommend getting those because they have things in there that just aren't necessary. Like, I don't know what red dye would do to a mealworm. My guess is that it's not going to be super harmful, but until that gets studied, I would just rather avoid it. And they do make water gel crystals specifically for insects. So I'm trying to load the page now that has the info. I'll post this once we're done here today. We're 20 minutes away from the top of the hour. I can go a little bit longer today if we need to, if we get into some good conversation. But I'll go back through. This will post to Facebook after they review it, make sure we didn't do anything wrong. And then I'll go in and reply to that with the link to the place that I get water gel crystals from. I actually need to order again soon, so it's still trying to load. Unfortunately, my bandwidth here is not super high where we live. So once I'm live streaming, then everything else kind of goes to pot. But I will get that for you, Gerard, and comment right here on your do you recommend. I'll reply to that. Just making that note here for Gerard. Water gel crystal link in comments. All right. Sounds good in my mood. Wonderful. All right. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Anything going on? Any good successes? Velazar, throw out a success for us. Throw out something awesome that you ran into recently. I've been heavily focused on the sifting machine and the shipping boxes. So I've been super busy with that. Insect. Okay. Superworms are pupaing like crazy in my dubia colonies. Awesome. Superworms are tough. I am struggling. I don't know. The most recent thing that I think I'm doing wrong is making the substrate too thick. And so I think they got too wet or damp. I was talking to Justin down at Sunshine State Worms. I always want to say Mealworms. I got some superworms from him to try to jumpstart the colony and keep things going, and I'm killing them. I feel terrible. So he and I chatted recently, and he suggested going thinner on my substrate because it was a good solid 3.5, maybe even 4 inches thick. And so I reduced that down. He said, no, go much less than that. And hopefully that will do good. I also lowered the humidity in my insect room. So I was at 70 to 75 to 80% sometimes. So I lowered that down. And we're hitting in between 50 and 60. So hopefully that reduces the moisture in those bins as well. And we'll just keep an eye on them and try to see what's going on. But I did have some bins that were good. They grew quite a bit. And then I pupated them. I actually tested the don't know if you guys remember, I purchased some prescription vial bottles, oddly enough, which is like you can buy those. A regular person, not even like a pharmacy, can buy those. I was unaware of that. But I purchased some of those because I've been using the PVC tubes for my superworm pupation, and I wanted something lighter, and I wanted something that was a secure, had a bottom to it, so that what I was thinking was happening is I was having a lot of die off, and a lot of supers that wouldn't pupate. And my theory was that in the tray that I had, the white dough proofing tray, I had it was bowing, and so there was just enough room in there for the pheromones that that the supers have. There were just enough room for that stuff to still let them know that there were other ones there and stop them from pupating. I don't know if there's anything to that. This is a homemade rig that I started to pupate. So I wanted something with a solid bottom. So that's why I went with, I looked at old film canisters. Like, remember those 35 millimeter film canisters? I looked at those, but they were very, very big. So I went with a skinnier, so I could get more in a tray, skinnier prescription vial bottles. And I also needed them taller than the 35 millimeter. They were short. They were only like 1 3/4 inches, maybe 2 inches. And the larva superworms would be able to climb out of that. So we were able to test those vials finally and had good success with them. So I'm going to try and do those again, do another, comparison of one tray of that with trays of the PVC tubes still, and just see how things go. But hopefully the lower humidity, maybe that was attributing some of the death. So, Velazar, I'm also doing sifting equipment and now struggling with Beetle's weekly tray chains. I am going to move to, so right now, the sifting, harvesting the mealworms and harvesting pupa are two things that are too much labor and time right now when we expand to the goal that I'm shooting for, 2 million mealworms a month or 2,200 trays. Right now it's a problem. And so the sifting machine hopefully helps with that for both of the harvesting and the pupa. The other problem is the same one you're running into, Velazar, is the beetle swap. And what I'm going to test out, and hopefully it works and I move to it, is a mesh bottom tray or insert into the mealworm tray that rests on the substrate. I've tried the mesh method where it's above the substrate, and it just did not produce, right? Like, same quantity of beetles, same farm, same colony, same location, right? Like, I had them next to each other on the same levels. I switched the levels too. So like airflow, sunlight, like everything was the same. The age of the beetles, they did not produce as well. And what I've been seeing is the mesh on the substrate. And so I'm going to try to do some of that. Right now, all of my available funding is going to the trays. And so at some point I'm going to need to stop that. This might be the time to do that. I'm going to get one more shipment, and then I might stop and take some revenue and put that into the mesh tray insert, so that I can make that process much faster. And so what that'll do, hopefully, is you have your tray of beetles that have been laying, you have the substrate in there, and then you have the insert. You have your fresh tray with fresh substrate, and you just plop it instead of having to sift the whole thing right now. So I need to get some of those manufactured and then test it out, because that's going to be, like, right now we're running at 80, I want to say 80 trays of mealworms. Usually about 10% of your trays is good, so I think we're a little low. I want to get back up to 100. And then once we expand up and we've got 2,200 trays, hopefully producing 2 million mealworms a month, I'm going to have 200 plus trays of beetles. So it's just not going to be a good thing to have to swap those out manually. Question, is the mesh Velazar? Why is it? Question, is the mesh metal? I think what I had tested was, I'm trying to remember. I think it was metal. I wonder if I used some sort of like window mesh that might have been not a metal option. I think it would I don't know. That's a good question. I should probably get mesh, like metal mesh and non-metal, unless Bells, have you been testing anything? I need to get the testing going on that, because our problem is just going to keep compounding as we start adding more and more beetle trays. I'm going to start doing all these lives during beetle swap, and you'll just see me doing this, and then I'll dump trays, and I'll be looking, answering questions, dump trays. Yeah, that doesn't sound like very much fun. Well, I don't hear Ben over there anymore. Let's make video chat. Yes, I'm testing metal one. Not happy. Okay. Can I bring you up here? Gerard, thank you. Some of my mealies escaped. Give me 1 second, Belzar. I want to read that. Thank you. Some of my mealies escaped and ended up in my Madagascar roach's cage. And when I saw in the worms pupa and beetles, they grew huge compared to the other mealies and are a bit confused. Sorry, I had to hit... a bit confused what the mealies were feeding on, because there's only cocoa peat in those bins, high humidity, and fruits. They're probably eating the fruits. The high humidity is going to help them because they are able to absorb moisture in the air when it's high humidity. So if they're not getting it from sources that they find that are wet, like the fruits or like the water gel crystals, they'll absorb it through the air. And then if they were left alone, basically, I think because the density, I think, impacts the size of them as well over time. And so it's probably because they were able to roam and just continue to get bigger without any predators getting them or anything tackling them. They just kept going. Velazar, do you want me to bring you up on this one, or do you want to make a separate one and do like we did before with a Zoom or a Google Meet? Yeah, it's interesting how those mealworms can escape. They'll hold on to you. Like I've walked home before after getting done for the day, and I'll be sitting there cooking my dinner or cooking my lunch if I'm stopped, and I'll feel something crawling on my back, right? Or I'll see it crawling up my pants or something. Like they cling on and they'll keep going. Separate one. Okay, yeah, we can do that. I'll ping you after. Well, after this, I need to go to the bank and wire some money, hopefully, for the trays and get some boxes. So, but I'll reach out. We'll chat. We're running into the same issues. Do you have pictures of what is the food source? Yeah, pictures would be good. Maybe there's something to the what were they in? Madagascar roaches. I'm not familiar with those. I bet Wally knows about those. Maybe not. I don't know. All right, we are at about 6 minutes till the top of the hour. So we'll keep going here for a little bit. We'll go over a little if we need to. Once everything is wrapped up, this will get posted to the Facebook group, so it'll be out there for us to reference and see. And if what I mentioned earlier in the session, if there were any questions or things that went unanswered because I didn't see them, I'll go ahead and tackle those once it's posted. My friend have a pantry moth problem anyway. How to kill the moths off without harming the mealies? Sticky traps. So like this right here. This guy. They are fly ribbons, and so they come in just a little tube. You pop the tube open and then you pull them, and this whole thing is just sticky. And that catches the moth when they fly. Unfortunately, they're going to fly down into the substrate and burrow down into that. So you might have to get a little tricky on where you place them near your trays. But that won't harm, as long as you don't put the sticky thing, right? Like if you put it in the tray, the mealworms are going to stick to it, right? But it's not any sort of pesticide or anything like that that'll hurt the mealworms. That's where the like, I know for mites we can use split pea flour. I'm actually going to have to transition soon to putting split pea flour in proactively. It's another reason why I reduced moisture in the farm, so that because I'm not going to be able to deep freeze the substrate that I'm going to start going through in such quantities. And so I'm going to put the split pea flour in with it, but I don't know of anything like split pea flour kills the mites. I don't know of anything that tackles the pantry moths. Sorry. Those are traps, wide open water source. Fill with 1 centimeter of water and they will drown. Interesting. I made a fly trap that it wasn't wide open though, so that's interesting. I guess the wide open, they're drawn to it and then they just get stuck. I like that solution. That's an easy one to test with. You just pop some water in an open, almost like a plate, or a bowl would work too, right? As long as you're talking wide or open. So. Anyway, so the deep freeze stuff, if you can heat or deep freeze your substrate, that will help get rid of anything that's in the substrate when you get it. So even, at least here in the US, even human grade food that you purchase at the grocery store can potentially have stuff in it. And so I recommend folks that, even if you have a small colony and you go to the grocery store and just grab some substrate there of whatever it is you can find, oats or something, definitely still put that through either some sort of heat or freezing treatment to help mitigate anything like that. But then once you get them, mites, pantry moths, cleaner crew, I had an outbreak of those at some point. Once you get those things, you just have to stay on top of it for several weeks to keep the mitigation stuff going. Like with mites, you want to make sure you reduce your humidity, you pull your moisture out of the bins if there's any in there. You get much more regimented about putting moisture into your bin, because you still want your mealworms to get some moisture, but you're trying to get rid of the moisture so that the mites will die off. And you just have to stay with that for several weeks to get things under control. Pantry moths are similar. They're going to burrow down into the substrate because that's how they lay their eggs. And so you're just going to have to be mindful of that being in there. Maybe touch those trays more frequently to try to find those things along with the traps or the open water sources. That's a good idea, Belazar. We should probably, I think I've got a grain mites section on my website. I don't have a pantry moths one, but that would be a good one, Belazar. We can throw that out. Pantry moths. Ideally, like one of the things I would like to do, mealwormfarming.org. That's a website that Scott Jost in the group, he stood that up several years ago, and we just haven't really utilized it. And I'm wondering if we could put some FAQs or some specific things out there, like these things, Velazar, with the comments here, instead of trying to remember those every time somebody asks, or post it in the group. Even like when we post it there, eventually those things just get lost and you've got to go search for them with the keywords or find them. I wonder if we could put some of that on that mealwormfarming.org page. It doesn't need to be on my website. I'm not trying to utilize it for that. Pantry Moths Traps hardware store. All right, let's get question. The trays are at tricycle.eco. Yes, I don't know if they have them listed on their website. I use the website to get their contact info, and then I reached out directly. I think they have like a contact us page, Joel. Gerard. So we are at the top of the hour. I'm going to tackle Gerard's question here, and then we'll wrap things up. Yeah, Joel, I don't think they're listed there on the site. I reached out via their contact us or about us page, and Alexis responded pretty quickly to that. I think it was a few days at most. You bet, Joel. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions or anything that I missed here, I'll go through all the comments once it posts and get some feedback to you. Gerard, let's tackle that. Do you market your frass as extra income? People around here love the frass for their fruit veggie gardens. Yes, so I do sell the frass. I haven't really marketed much. So I do a lot of social media stuff, but I wouldn't call that traditional marketing, like paying somebody or advertising or things like that. I just haven't done it, don't have the budget. I've been putting everything back into expanding stuff as opposed to marketing. And right now the mealworms are keeping things sufficient. I do sell the frass. It's listed on various places. What I'm finding from a U.S. perspective though is that so I'm in central Missouri, which is right smack dab in the middle of the United States. Folks in this region don't really know about frass yet. When I mention frass to people, that what is that? I've never heard of that before. And so they're I don't want to say they're uneducated. They just haven't run into it before. But they don't know how to use it or what it's going to do for them. Right. And unfortunately, I can't connect those dots yet because I don't do a lot of, raising of plants or anything like that. I do have a small garden, but nothing tremendously huge. And so I can't talk the talk to kind of say like, oh, you've got tomatoes. Well, here's how that's going to be beneficial for you from a frass perspective. So the frass is one of the things that, I package it up. I've got it here. I have a couple different options that I do try to sell it through various website things. But I'm producing more than I'm selling. We use it a lot here. This building is located on an organic farm. And so the frass goes over to them to utilize in the farming process. And ideally, it would be good additional revenue, and we'll get there eventually. It's starting to become more well-known, and I think it's just an education thing for folks to start to learn what it is. It's difficult folks in the U.S. are very visual people. And so unless you can visually see a stark difference in a plant, it's going to be difficult to convince somebody to spend the little money they have available to buy that instead of the competition is a fertilizer from the big companies that, it is what it is. You can see the stark difference, right? And there are pros and cons to that. So that's kind of what we're up against here from a frass perspective. The cannabis folks, especially on the coasts, people that raise cannabis are very in tune with it. And so as that continues to become legalized in the U.S., there'll be some uptick in that as well, hopefully. But we'll see. The cannabis is funny because I just posted some videos recently. I've got a bunch of frass packaged up in totes ready to go. And so I threw out a post on that, and TikTok flagged it for violations of community guidelines for the drug/alcohol guidelines, just because I was putting it out there and I had used some hashtags for cannabis. So that was interesting. I appealed and they agreed with the appeal, thankfully. So kind of fun, but all right. Well, we are going to wrap up for the day. I'm going to go get some more stuff done, really get myself tired for the day. Thank you guys for jumping in. Thank you for all the good questions. Gerard, I've got a follow-up for you that I'll comment on here with the insect water gel crystals. If anybody else had any questions that I missed, I'll get to those as well. Thank you for all the good feedback. Velazar, I'll be in touch, and I'll get another one scheduled. I'll do that tonight. I didn't get a chance to do it at the beginning. I'll do that tonight. We'll do it next week, probably Tuesday or Wednesday. So if you need anything before then, throw it out in the co-op group. Throw some more comments out there, and we'll be here. Thank you all very much. Have a good afternoon, evening, or morning.